And I am Wayne. I am the Irish Beer Snob. With me tonight I have Ian from 11 PM Somewhere and Mrs. Beer Snob, who's Janice.
Hi.
So everyone say hi.
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 How you doing? Joy Tribbiani has joined us, especially from New York today. We have a panel of guests tonight. We've got bloggers, we've got podcasters, we've got a brewer, we also have a distributor, and we have people who are genuinely interested in craft beer. Obviously, this is a first in Ireland in terms of getting people together in this way. I am the Irish Beer Snob. With me tonight I have Ian from Somewhere.
Hi.
Yay for Google Hangouts.
This is why you have headphones.
Right.
That's probably a
You
good
guys all
idea.
want to wear headphones, that'd be great. Joy Tribbiani joined us, especially from New York. We have a panel of guests tonight. We've got bloggers, we've got podcasters.
Right. Are you watching yourself on YouTube?
And we have people. No, YouTube's closed.
Right.
This is a first in Ireland in terms of getting people together. Okay. Epic fail. You can tell this is our first go at this. So before the feedback loop of infinity came in there, I was just about to say our panelists can start introducing themselves. So we'll start with Steve from the Beer O'Clock Show. Good evening, Steve.
Hi Wayne, hi everyone, how you doing?
Hey, Steve.
Hey Steve. Hello. Did you want a bit more than that? Than just hello? Yes, hello. I'm the co-host of the UK's leading beer podcast, the Beer O'Clock Show. You can find us on Twitter at Beer O'Clock Show.
How do you define lead?
How do I define leading? Because with a series of metrics weighed against the other 4 podcasts in the UK, we're clearly the best.
Yeah, come on.
And next we have Sarah.
Hello, I'm Sarah from 5 Minutes of Finney. It's a vlog all about craft beer and sometimes a bit about whiskey. And you can find me at 5minfinny.com or Irish Finney on Twitter. So, sorry.
Nice one. Rob.
Hi, I'm Rob. I am a lazy stalwart of the UK, British, I'd say, English craft beer blogging community. Hopzine.com, and I primarily have a YouTube channel, which is also called Hopzine. So I guess that's me. Hi.
Okay, and we have our first brewer, Richard, from the Black Donkey.
Hi, I'm Richard. I'm the founder and head brewer, head bottle washer, head drain cleaner, and all points in between at Black Donkey Brewing in Ballinlough in Roscommon in the far, far flung west of Ireland.
Excellent. Next we have James Winans.
Hiya, James, Winans, Vanguard Beer Collective. We do distribution and marketing for a load of different Irish craft breweries. Try to keep ourselves busy.
Excellent. And last but not least, we have James Richardson.
Hi everybody, just a big beer geek, and I've been probably annoying most of you on Twitter in the last couple of months, and just a big raider and big fan of craft beer in general.
Excellent. Now that everyone's introduced and we all kind of know a little bit more about each other, I suppose really this kind of all spun out a bit from a question James posed when we were kind of doing questions for podcasts, and he was kind of asking about the current craft beer scene in Ireland in terms of maximum density. Are we approaching a situation where there's enough breweries or not enough breweries to satisfy the demand in the market? So I suppose the fact that we've got James and Richard to kind of answer, or to kind of have a chat about that question is great. So James and Richard, I suppose in that point of view, what do you kind of think about the current scene in Ireland in terms of number of breweries and obviously number of new breweries that are coming down the line? Do you think it's kind of slowed down a little bit, or do you still see the same kind of momentum that we experienced in 2014, which was just absolutely huge levels of growth in a 12-month period?
You want me to go first, Richard?
Yeah, go ahead. Beauty before the beast.
Yeah, 2014 was an absolutely mental year. It got to the point where I stopped even trying to keep up with new breweries and new beers because they were coming so hard and so fast. This year so far seems to have slowed down slightly or calmed down slightly. I'm not sure if it's just a calm before the storm, but there's definitely been a bit of a slackening off. I get asked this question all the time, and my answer is generally that at least for last year, while the demand side, or while the supply side was outstripping the demand side, both were growing quite quickly. There probably are too many breweries for today, but today is moving very, very quickly. So I'm hoping that if we can just keep on producing really, really good beer, there'll be room for everybody. Over to you, Richard.
Yeah, I suppose actual ribbon cuttings have slowed down a little bit. I still get very frequent requests from people saying, "I'm going to start a brewery. What do I need to know?" Last week, I was invited to speak at a seminar hosted by the Food Safety Authority of Ireland for people wanting to start new food businesses, and a few of the people there had breweries on their minds. What I'm noticing now is more people wanting to open a brewery that have absolutely no beer history whatsoever. They just realize craft brewing is a buzz. They think it's a way of getting rich. They've obviously never met too many brewers. And so they want to kind of jump on the bandwagon, which, there's this kind of a sort of battered and bruised apprentice side of me that says that's not the right way to do it. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say what the critical mass of microbreweries or craft breweries is in Ireland because the scene is evolving so rapidly. If you kind of extrapolate Irish beer consumption, Irish population, and so on, there should be room in Ireland for 100 craft beer brands. And
we're not far off that.
Well, but there are some that have sort of come up now that, they've got a lot of groundwork to do. There are some that really hit the ground running, but there are some that have opened their doors, and you kind of got to think that they probably should have spent a couple more years at Homebrew Academy before they cut the ribbon and decided to go commercial. And I think what we'll see now is, more than anything else, I think the consumer will determine where the market goes. And the consumer has become increasingly educated and increasingly discerning, and they are not accepting of sort of home brewers who just decided one day it'd be a good idea to go pro because they, scored 35 in a BJCP competition. And so we'll see what happens is the simple answer. But I think there will be a thinning of the herd. There's no question. There are some existing breweries that probably won't survive, and there will be some new breweries that will come along that will take things to another level.
Well, James, obviously you posed the question originally. What are your own thoughts on that?
Yeah, I guess I'm happy to have James Winans and Richard here to answer from their perspective because the question was brought up at a conversation I had with Sam Black a couple of weeks ago, and he said the exact same thing as the last fellow said, that that there will be a thinning of the herd, people going into business for different reasons. Hopefully it's not to be a millionaire, but I think it'll be pretty true to what we saw in the States in the mid-'90s, where there was that pretty big bubble of people getting into it. It was a new thing. It was a popular thing. People saw it as the cool business to be into at the moment. And those people that didn't have, either to Richard's point, the actual brewing experience, they just kind of came out with whatever they thought was going to work, dropped by the wayside. People that went into it without really the passion behind it, more of the business side of things, probably went by the wayside. And then it was actually a very good thing. You saw the thinning of the herd, and people who were very interested in brewing for all the right reasons come to the forefront. And I think it's something that's, in a funny way, strong for the community. If there are those people and they do drop out, all of a sudden there's free equipment, maybe not free equipment, but equipment at a reduced price. You get people that start to push the boundaries a little bit, and it's good for everybody in the end. So I wouldn't be surprised if we have started to see the plateau in 2015, and it'll be interesting to see how the second half of the year goes.
Yeah, just to open that out to everyone else, obviously Steve and Rob in the UK would have, they'd be a little bit further down the track than the Irish market will be at the moment. What are your own kind of thoughts in terms of what you've seen in the European market? I suppose people looking west towards the States and what's going on there, but I suppose if you're remiss not to kind of look at what's going on to our nearest neighbours in like Rob in particular, West Yorkshire is, I grew up there and was back recently, and I was quite startled by the number of breweries in such a small area. Geographically similar population to Ireland, with approximately 90 breweries there now.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, really. I mean, I guess we are a little bit further down the line. Well, as far as kind of traditional beer, I guess a bit further down the line, definitely. But as far as kind of craft, I mean, I hear people from America saying England, well, Britain is like 20 years behind, and I think that's not fair. I think we're maybe 5 years behind them. I think as far as from what I kind of sample from Ireland, I mean, it's like 2-3 years, because things are moving, as you said, things are moving so rapidly. I think it's a constant kind of thing with a lot of people every so often they always say, when's this bubble going to burst? And it's not. It's really not. I mean, once upon a time, the swell of kind of craft, more modern, I guess you could call it, craft breweries, were kind of cropping up in the north. And now, I mean, that's the kind of hysteria is all in London. London is from what I've seen, Steve will know a lot more about it than me, but it's absolutely mental. We thought, all right, it's getting to that saturation point, but it's not. It feels like it's gone past the saturation point, and you feel like it must change soon. I mean, just as I just got back in before we started doing this, and I'd been at a brewery called Cloudwater, which is on the outskirts of Manchester. Fantastic brewery, very forward-thinking, a really good kind of backstory. There's like the head brewer was the former head brewer at Marble for like 9 years. There's a guy who used to work at Summer Wine. There's a guy who really talented home brewer called Al. The girl who was kind of doing all the marketing, PR, and opening their bar, opened up a big chunk of what Brewdog have done and stuff. So there's kind of really good pedigree, and they're trying to kind of like do things in a very creative way. But you think, okay, but aren't the loads of breweries as it is already? But I mean, I think Manchester was a bit of a poor show for a long time, and now there's, I think in the last year, there's an extra 5 at least, maybe 7, just surrounding one city. So it just doesn't feel like it's going to stop. But it's, I guess, as Richard was saying, it feels like it's got to. I mean, inevitably, it's asking to stop. But I just can't see it stopping at the moment. It's crazy.
Okay,
I mean, San Diego is a really good example of that. If you look at their beer right now, like they're still like year on year, like adding more and more breweries to their scene. In San Diego, if you talk about like breweries per square mile versus per square mile in Ireland, like it's like they are like grossly in excess of everything we have here. And the idea that breweries are just going to keep falling off the map, I think that's. I don't think that's maybe going to be the case. I think what's going to happen is you're going to start to see more innovation. Instead of being 50 shades of the same beer being done with being put in different combinations, different times using the same ingredients, I think you're going to see what happened with like on the San Diego beer scene. You're going to see like Karl Strausses. You're going to see things like the Stones, the Ballast Point. You know, people taking a totally unique slant on beers and then driving beer innovation in an area. And I think in Ireland we'll start to see beer innovation happening an awful lot more. And you can start to see it as brewers stretch their legs, try new beer styles, try new ingredients. But it's going to really take more than just like changing hops and adding in new additions. It's going to be moving beyond the same malts, moving beyond the USO5 yeasts, and also starting to look at water chemistry and playing around with that a lot more. And then people doing their own yeast propagation as they move into more full-time brewing schedules as opposed to part-time brewing schedules, as is the case in some of the smaller breweries in Ireland. But it will get there. I don't think there is a ceiling on this. I think the ceiling is going to be innovation and the tolerance of the consumer. And if you look at the amount of imported beers coming into Ireland, there is a massive increase in flood of more foreign beers coming into Ireland. And if anything, that just tells us a voracious appetite for more beer coming in commercially. But it also should have every single Irish brewer worrying about losing what is limited beer space on shelves to foreign brands who will get traction an awful lot quicker for being different and interesting.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, Cloudwater that I went to today, that is exactly what they're doing. They're not following the crowd. One thing I see definitely from London, there seems to be a proliferation of breweries, new breweries copying more kind of established breweries. Colonel have been so massively influential in London. I mean, you see another brewery pop up in a railway arch somewhere in South London, you think, is it going to be some very tasty, maybe very tasty IPA, but which is very cloudy. But you mean it's what are they bringing new to the table? And I mean, Cloudwater, who I went to see today, they were definitely doing that. They're kind of seeing their beer as they release beer as a season. It's a little bit pretentious, but I really like it. And when you spoke to the guys behind it, it's kind of like it's like a fashion house. This is our spring collection, this will be our summer collection, and so on and so forth. And they can move within that parameter as much as they want, and they can be as creative as they want. They're not slaves to kind of like core ranges or anything like that. You can do as they want. They can react and they can be nimble. And same goes to their packaging, which I found a really brave decision. Their packaging will change every time. They will have constant elements, but their kind of bottle labels will be designed by a different artist every season, which I find massively brave. I mean, it's like something like Brewdog, who've gone through their like brand change recently, and it was such a massive thing for them. I mean, they went over it for months and months and months, went through various incarnations because of the importance of like brand recognition. And then there's this brewery going, no, we don't see that important. We just see like the importance of kind of being unique and creative and appealing to like good taste as much as anything. So I think you're right. I think innovation is where it lies.
So what's everyone drinking?
I have a very special, desperate MILF from our friends down the road of the Galway Bay Brewery. And yeah, it's the first time on this one. Haven't tried it before. Very respectable. Not bad at all.
I had that for the first time there last week or the week before, and it's definitely, I think it'll be nice in the summer if we get a nice hot summer. Something like that would be quite.
Oh, that was last week.
Oh, yeah, I missed that, yeah.
You missed it.
We're actually having a
Stone IPA.
Stone IPA.
Cali Belgique.
There you go.
Very nice.
I've got a bottle of Belgian Beaver peanut butter flavoured milk stout.
Oh, I love that one.
The last of my purchase. It were an absolute bargain as well. It were about £4 odd that as well. Bargain. That's about €25.
That's €100 since you made that joke, Rob.
I've got the old Brewdog IPA is dead, the Amarillo. So.
Wow, vintage.
Yeah,
How
vintage.
does that hold up after a year?
Huh?
How is that holding up after a year?
Actually quite good, yeah. You know? Hasn't died yet.
Steve?
I've got an empty glass at the moment,
Oh, shocking.
which isn't good. I'm going to have to nip and get myself something else in a second. But I've just finished a Foam of Fury, which was one of the ones that I managed to get my hands on before the gates closed.
Ooh.
We're working on that. The two Jameses, what are you drinking?
I'm going slightly darker. The very end of my Imperial Russian.
That's a good one.
And I was doing a bit of a spring clean today and found my very last bottle of BR number 1.
Ah, sweet.
So kind of curious how that's sat in the bottle.
I think I still have one, I think.
I'm that goes in.
Ooh,
The Prairie Pirate Bomb that I actually, Rob, I picked up not too far from you in Chester Wines and Spirits, I think.
Okay.
Lovely Imperial Stout, 14%. Nice chocolate notes, lovely.
Oh, I want that now.
Steve, I see you've had a wardrobe change.
Oh, how shameless is that?
At the stocks.
Why not? You know, I'm determined to be at the top of that leaderboard come the end of the year.
But you've already been to the brewery.
It's not about going to the brewery, Rob. It's about being at the top.
Always have to be the best.
Absolutely, yeah. I've got a new beer as well. I've just gone and got this out.
Oh, fuck. I am not saying a word about that beer. It's got me in too much trouble already.
Yeah, you know the way.
I've not tried it from the bottle yet.
You know the way you have the klaxon, Steve, for Halcyon?
Yes.
I think Unhuman Cannibal should probably have air raid siren.
I think so. Almost like an end of the world warning.
Yeah. It's like DEFCON 5 is about to happen.
I might not be much use after this, to be honest with you, but oh well. As long as I just sit here like this, I'll be happy.
Steve and his Unhuman Cannonball. I suppose that T-shirt is a nice segue into the whole kind of topic of crowdfunding. Obviously, the different methods of crowdfunding. Obviously, Steve is an equity punk, and he's trying to get to the top of the leaderboard there for referrals. And all the equity punks have a referral code for people to use, and obviously there is referral benefits. But I suppose crowdfunding as a way of raising finance for businesses. There's obviously the straight-up crowdfunding like Indiegogo, Kickstarter, and those kind of things. But James, you obviously recent experience of using Link Finance as an alternative to mainstream lending. How did you find the experience, and did you find that people kind of buying into the concepts? Like, tell us a little bit more about
that. As a marketing exercise, it's very, very useful, very, very easy and straightforward. Our campaign was up, I think, for 2 weeks. We were looking for 25,000 in funding, and we had a total of nearly 60,000 bid. So we ended up just taking 25,000 at the lowest interest rate. But saying that, the flip side to that is the 25,000 at the lowest interest rate was still significantly higher than kind of traditional funding through a bank. So there's a certain trade-off for that. We decided to pay a little bit extra in interest to have access to what ended up being nearly 1,000 people, a database of nearly 1,000 people interested in Irish craft beer, to call upon for anything from beer launches to meet the brewers to new items we're putting out in the market. So that's why we did that. If you're just looking for cheap funding, you're actually better off going to the bank right now. But sometimes there's more to it than just a percentage point.
Yeah, very true. I suppose like the model of like crowdfunding and borrowing is a little different to like I know Sam in Blacks Can Sail, when he kind of launched initially, did an Indiegogo campaign, and that's why you're drinking Beyond Number One. Richard, as a brewer, is that something you've ever considered yourself?
Yeah, I have used crowdfunding in the past, not for beer-related things. I actually used Kickstarter about 3 years, nearly 4 years ago now, to raise money to finish a film that I produced, and it was phenomenally successful. And I thought it was very, very exciting. And I haven't considered it for the brewery as of right now, but I mean, I'm a small startup business. What would I possibly need funding for? You know, it's we'll see. We'll see down the road. It's not something I'd rule out. It's a fantastic way, yeah, of potentially raising money for a project, but also of generating a bit of exposure and a bit of publicity and a bit of goodwill. There's no two ways about it. Crowdfunding is a very, very exciting new opportunity that's only been brought about through the sort of the e-generation.
An interesting note on crowdfunding with linked finance in particular. Their most successful campaigns and the ones that their investors have the most interest in by far is anything to do with craft beer. If the words craft and beer appear anywhere in the investment manifest, the thing will sell out 200-300%.
Wow. You know, when I actually think about the LinkedIn or the linked finance type deals for craft beer, I find it like it's a real oxymoron, and it almost betrays the idea of craft, because I think it's such a soulless thing in that respect, that you're not getting someone to buy into the brewery as a shareholder and to get them to be your best advocate and to be your evangelist. It's a really cold deal where you're actually just doing a loan of money for something back in return into just more money. I think it's real. It doesn't do the same thing as, like, say, what the equity punk thing for Brewdog was, where you're actually speaking to people who are buying the beers. You're getting them to act as ambassadors for you, getting them to act as evangelists for you, and to go out there and spread their message and promote their beers at the same time, and also giving back to them in other ways, where we get discounts when we go buy stuff from the online store. Once a year we get this amazing party thrown for us up at the Ellen Brewery, or sorry, not the Ellen Brewery, the Aberdeen Expo, and also we get a trip to the Ellen Brewery the next day. I think that just gets people to buy into it a lot more. I really do find just the cold hard cash things it doesn't sit with the message of passion, because like money is cold and it is soulless.
But necessary. Absolutely necessary.
It's necessary, Rob, or James, but like 15 people being brought in as shareholders for Brewdog, it being the single biggest selling brand of beer in this country, it's the fastest growing beer brand in the Irish and the UK markets. You can't argue with that. Those are numbers that are generated by something which
is... but there's more to it than just that. I mean, there's significant legal issues with selling equity in a company. You can't just randomly go out on the street and offer shares to people. It has to be done within a legal framework. And when you have an organization like Linked Finance, who a loan also has to be done, and I do agree with you in terms of the soul and the spirit of the venture, but you have a company like Linked Finance who will go and cross the T's and dot the I's for you. It makes it somewhat simple. But, you know, to get a team of potentially lawyers and what have you on board to make sure that your share offering is legal in all the territories in which it's offered, that's not something that a small brewery or a small distributor or something is going to be in a position to do. Pure and simple. And I could be wrong, but I don't think Brewdog ever did their equity for punks until they were a reasonably well-established company. It wasn't something they did from day one.
No, I think there's a gap for that, though. And James, but what James has said about that craft beer being the hottest thing, and you look at that where you can actually allow that dot to be connected and joined, it's an opportunity that's out there for someone to take hold of who has the opportunity to do it.
Well, I mean, we sold, when we were setting up Black Donkey, we did sell some equity in the company, ironically, well, not ironically, but curiously enough, through LinkedIn, through a contact we made on LinkedIn. LinkedIn had absolutely nothing to do with the sale. But somebody who found us on LinkedIn and liked what we were doing, and we got talking and ended up becoming an equity investor in the company. So, it's there's no question that there's a lot more to selling an equity stake in your company than simply raising capital, raising credit. But to do a advertised kind of a public offering, it's not something you can just do. It has to be done within a certain framework.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, because Brewdog were quite well established when they did the first three series of Equity for Punks, but I suppose that's the thing as well, that the expertise wouldn't necessarily be in the brewery. It's when you start going outside, like it's like accountants and anything like that, you start paying for that advice, and startup businesses don't generally have huge amounts of extra cash to flow around. Like, it comes back to a point that somewhat Richard was making earlier about, there's a lot of people looking at craft beer as this really hot ticket and as a way of making money. And someone actually, I think it was Phil Mountain Man, actually said it to me when he saw me in a Blacks of Kinsale t-shirt, "Living the Dream since 2013" as a slogan on the back. And I think Phil said, "God, I wonder what kind of dreams Sam had, because it's not making millions of money." In fairness, he makes great beer, but the thing is, like, genuinely passionate people who make craft beer, is my perception that most of them do not make the beer for the sole purpose of making money. While we live in a capitalist society, they're making better beer for everybody to enjoy. But yes, the making the money part of it is important, but I don't get that feeling from a lot of the craft breweries in Ireland at the moment. So I'm in between both camps, to be honest. But I think crowdfunding will play an important part in the future for the more established breweries that are out there. They may see it as a different way of giving back or even getting extra finance without necessarily taking on interest rates, because obviously interest rates can be variable,
One thing I was going to ask was, based on the discussions, just the two that I'm kind of like mainly aware of, one being Brewdog, the other being Stone. As someone who might potentially invest in these things, what makes it attractive to you? Because when I saw the Stone thing, I'm thinking, ooh, I can get some fancy beer, but then I looked at how much it was going to cost, and I thought, oh well, maybe not. Which it would be wonderful. But then the whole thing with like Brewdog, first time round, I remember it coming up and thinking £93 is quite a lot of money to be in like essentially a beer club. And then I look back now and think I would have saved so much more on like postage if I'd have signed up. And like when it came up this week, I was really tempted. It just kind of like for very practical reasons. A lot of time I get to get on their online shop for all those fantastic imports that they're going to be bringing in. I'm going to get that free postage. It kind of makes a bit of sense. But to be honest, as someone who has considered that, and whatever you guys think, Steve, Ian, I know you're kind of equity punk holders. I don't feel like I've got any kind of involvement in it. I've had kind of some type of kind of relationship with Brewdog, but I don't. If I became an equity for punk shareholder, for me it doesn't feel like I'm actually a shareholder as such. I don't know if I'd feel involved. I think that's a bit more of a personal thing. If you feel involved in it, I think you are involved. But that was the one thing Richard was talking about. If you say, the big criticism of Brewdog has been, how much of a percentage of that business do you actually own? It's kind of like 0.0.72 or something, isn't it? It's tiny, and bigger it grows, smaller it gets. So I don't know if they've been very clear on what that kind of like. They were first time round, like the very first time they did the equity points, they're very clear on the percentage that you were getting. But like now, this time, I don't know if they have been that clear about it. That has not put me off. Being poor has put me off.
You sure it's not being northern that's put you off?
There's a bit of well, kind of a little bit sometimes. maybe priorities. priorities being the beer what's over there mainly. I could have saved £95 or something by not buying a load of beer the last 2 weeks, but whatever. But I guess that's my kind of like point is I don't feel like if I tied up to Brewdog, I'd feel like I was part of it. I feel like I was part of a beer club. I might be wrong. I'm sure Ian would definitely disagree with me, but I mean.
Well, I don't look at that. There's a bit of that, and for me, Rob, to be quite honest. But the other thing aside for me as well is that, I actually fully believe in the ethos of what the guys are trying to do, what they've stood for. I think and the story of the brewery for me is like hugely compelling, especially as I'm sort of in the middle of what's going on over here.
Yeah.
They're up in the back end of Scotland, the worst place in the world, and their first beer is Punk IPA. Like in 2007, you might as well have been like Stone back in 1996, turning around and putting out their pale ale, and people are like, no one is going to drink that. We're like, we don't care. We'll find people who will drink it.
Mm.
And I think it's that sort of notion of staying the path as opposed to being true, as opposed to capitulating to the market and just becoming like a follow the leader type deal. I suppose for me that's where it stands, and I like as a business how they operate. When you go up to the Allen Brewery and you see the absolute joy that everyone has in their jobs up there and the amount of energy that's in that place, it is just phenomenal.
Yeah, I suppose I was up there in August as well with Steve. That particular aspect of it's like everyone pulling in the same direction. But I suppose like Sarah and James Richardson have been conspicuously quiet. So Sarah, what are your thoughts on the whole crowdfunding thing, and would you consider investing in, say, Brewdog, for example, or have you invested in Link Finance and things like that because you believe in craft beer, or do you think yourself as a consumer by buying and advocating good beers in Ireland to people through your vlog and through your contributions to podcasts like with Steve and that, do you think that is as important as an actual putting your money on the table saying, take my money?
Well, I mean, if I did consider buying into Brewdog, I did, but being a student, I actually don't have that amount of money to put forth, and when I'm not getting something in return physically, I can't actually say, hey, here's 90 some odd pounds, and I'm not getting a physical product back from it. Yes, I'm getting discounts in the future, fine. I do agree that Brewdog is extremely creative and innovative in their beers, and I stand behind that, and I understand why people would, Aiden, stop. Sorry, dog's drinking at the same time. Would fund
What's he drinking?
That pistachio cherry ale, is it?
Huh? He's drinking the beer. What now? No, would fund I would have loved to fund Blacks as well because I believe in them too, but I just can't put forth money into stuff like that when I have to put forth money into my own education right now too. So I do feel by buying their beers and by going through social media and promoting their beers as something that I like, as something that I believe in, and just bring my opinion forth as far as what I like in craft beer and what I find interesting and different. Should be enough support in that right now until I can actually help out financially. So I don't know.
My take on it is very similar. I've got maybe 2 pennies that I could find to rub together sooner or later. So my support, I would absolutely do the Link Finance or any crowdfunding for a brewery that I believed in, like obviously Brewdog and Blacks. But I think that my support comes in other ways, just like Sarah's, and what I try and do is raise awareness as best as I possibly can with, the Joe Soaps right now in Ireland that are on the fence, that have seen sort of the craft beer revolution happen in the last couple of years, are excited by it, but maybe a little intimidated. They don't know where to start. So that's my take on it, is saying, here's a good brewery that makes absolutely fantastic beers that you might want to give a try to, depending on what you are comfortable with. So if I had the money, I would, but unfortunately, I don't. So.
Fair enough. And Steve, what are your own thoughts there? Obviously, your T-shirt tells a story.
Yeah. Well, no, because I wasn't an equity holder until this week. I had missed out on the first 3 rounds, and when they announced on Tuesday that they were going for a 4th round, I think by the time I got home from, because I was at the launch on Tuesday night, so by the time I got home from the launch, I'd actually invested. For me, it wasn't. I'd never been under. Sorry, what was that?
That's effective brainwashing.
I definitely think they put something in the beer that night. Absolutely. But for me, I've never been under any misconceptions that I'm gonna essentially own part of the brewery. The shareholding that I've got in that business is so small that it's inconsequential almost. For me, it was about being part of it, about being part of what seems to be one of the funnest clubs on the planet, and just also just some of the benefits that it offers. The fact that I suppose for me it's slightly different because I've got access to sort of 4 of their bars in London. So I can go in and I can make good use of the discount in the bars. Discount online is always good, and all the other little bits that they're throwing at it. So for me, it was more about being part of that club than it was actually wanting to have a say in the business. I want to invest in that business because I think they're going where they're going is a fantastic place, and I want to be part of that.
God, you sound like an advert for Brewdog, Steve.
Yeah, sorry. And if you are going to invest, this is the code right here.
He's been drinking more than Kool-Aid.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm completely indoctrinated now.
You're around Steve and not me.
Yeah.
I was just about to say that. I was like, why are you so quiet on this whole Brewdog thing?
Because
I'm the one drinking it.
Ian, did you get your reference code tattooed down there somewhere recently?
I have been all along.
In fairness, Ian got my reference when I bought my shares. Sorry, Steve.
Oh no, he's not going to talk to
Devastated. That's right. I'm happy. I've got
at the end of the month to give you a code.
Kind of has to be done.
I've got the number of references I needed for the extra perks that I wanted, so I'm happy at the moment.
I suppose, like, obviously, Brewdog do make some great beers, but in terms of the market itself in Ireland, I know from talking to say like brewers like Bretton Brewhouse up in Monaghan recently visited their brewery. They were saying that they find that their IPA actually sells really well in Dublin, but it's all the blonde ale and red ale in the local area that does well. Do you think it's a case in Ireland in particular that it's the developed areas like Cork, Galway, Limerick, Dublin that are really kind of a little bit more adventurous in terms of styles of beer and things? What's your own finding on that, Richard? Obviously, you're out in the west, the wild west of Ireland. So, like, what's your experience been locally with the local pubs and restaurants with regards to Sheep Stealer and now Bucket as well?
It's been mixed. I would say we can find in the towns around us, which would be the stronghold of the axis of evil for the last 50 years, we can find at least one good solid outlet in each town, and we can find an enthusiastic following in each town, small though it may be. And Sheep Stealer is, I mean, I can honestly say the vast majority of people who try it seem to like it. Either that or they're just, being very Irish polite and not wanting to cause a fuss. But
that's true.
It's yeah. Well, thank you, Sarah.
Well, I don't like the but I like that one, so we did get that.
But it's I would say maybe the city folk are a little more adventuresome, but there's also, because of the population density in the urban areas, possibly, there may be more of a competition sense and more of a one-upmanship, and people wanted to say to their friends at work on a Monday morning, oh, I had this beer that you've never heard of before. Whereas I don't think that's a big issue out here in the country. Guys go out, I mean, I've had reports from some of the pubs that people are kind of drinking sheep stealer because they want something different. It would be very hard to nail down the demographic, but I suppose most consumers would be in the maybe 25 to 45 age group. But some people are drinking it because they're just tired of drinking what they've been drinking for the last 30 years. Some are drinking it because it's a little higher in gravity, which is not the intention. That's I don't want people to drink our beer because it gets loaded faster, but some people have kind of figured that out. But it's definitely, yeah, there's no question. It's volumes. The three major urban areas, Dublin, Cork, and Galway. I suppose I should say Galway, Dublin, and Cork, considering where I am. They do account for the majority of our sales, there's no doubt about it. But we also face much, much stiffer competition in those markets too. Whereas where we are right now, we have virtually no competition unless you count the old standards as competition.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, you know, touching on the point you made about people drink sheep steel that get loaded quicker. A barman in a pub in Navan told me recently how Kentucky ales have that bourbon barreled ale.
Yeah.
And people had actually come in and they go, what's that beer? And go, this is it. And it's like, what is it, 8 point something %? And the guy go, like, rather than saying what does it taste like, it's what's the alcohol? I'll have that.
Yeah.
So I think that's more culturally an issue with Ireland's association with alcohol more than anything else. I suppose that kind of links me on to something I put up on my Facebook page there during the week. There was an article in this week's Independent. I don't even recall the author's name because the article might as well have been fish and chip paper, for my opinion. But basically,
It was fish and chip paper.
Well, basically, the premise was that if you're drinking craft beer, unbeknownst to yourself, they've hidden more alcohol in there, so therefore you're actually drinking more. That was kind of the tone. And, like, generally, I don't think consumers are generally that stupid, or I'd like to give them the benefit of the doubt. But, like, as a brewery and a distributor, James and Richard, and everyone else jump in as well, like, what are your own thoughts on that? I actually thought it was quite insulting to imply that someone would sit down drinking a pint of Foam and Fury in the same manner they would drink a pint of Heineken, for example. I just found that absolutely ridiculous, but that's just my opinion at the end of the day.
Yeah, well, I thought it was a pretty ridiculous article as well, and for the most part, complete.
I was expecting to be paid for by Diageo down the bottom.
What?
Sorry, just putting it out there.
Really?
There is a lot of disinformation being circulated about craft beer. That is one of them, that it's infinitely stronger. The next beer that we're about to release will be coming out in a commercial form towards the end of next month, is going to be tipping the scales about 4.1%, which by Irish measures is what you would consider to be a standard beer. And you know, there's absolutely no strength whatsoever to the rumor that there's more alcohol in craft beers. There is perhaps some credence that craft brewers are willing to push the envelope and brew some higher gravity beers that the big macro industrial producers are not going to do.
Well,
but I mean, you can buy a bottle of beer produced down on St. James's Gate that's 7.5% alcohol, and you could have bought that beer for the last 20, 30 years. I don't know how long foreign export has been in production, but that's a high gravity beer. So there's no substance to the sort of myth that craft beers are inherently stronger because they're craft beers. Much like there was an article written by actually a reasonably well-respected wine critic who wrote about beer, and one thing that I loved was the English created bitter beer, and it was distinguished from the other beers because they left the hop seeds in it, and the hop seeds made it bitter, and that's why it's called bitter. And I think somebody fed him a line just to see whether he would actually publish it, and he did. And it was there in black and white in the Irish Times or the Indo or one of them. I was just going, how the hell did that get past an editor? But this is the kind of thing, craft beer, it's an unknown entity in Ireland, so you can say what you want about it and somebody somewhere will believe it.
There was a 20 best in Dublin list that came out during the week talking about the smell of toasted hops in the Dublin air.
Toasted hops.
None coming down by the river somewhere.
Back to high alcohol beers. I mean, people understand high alcohol beers. You know, when we distribute particularly draft beers that would be, you know, up over the 8-9%. There's only a very limited market, a limited amount of places that those go into, and the drinkers there get it. I don't even particularly like putting high alcohol draft beers onto lines because they end up staying on there for so long because people go in and see how strong it is and don't drink very much. So they go in and they have a 350 or a 400 ml measure of the beer and then, you know, move on to something else. So, yeah, I don't give a lot of credence to people don't understand what ABV means.
People understand what ABV means when they go and buy a cheap bottle of vodka from Tesco that tastes like paint stripper. So all of a sudden when it comes to beer, people are ABV oblivious. Again, this is where I start calling for shills.
Now, there's also, you know, a huge difference in different areas. I mean, even the urban-rural divide is obvious, but even within Dublin, there's well, I'll give you an example. There's a little off-license out in Tala that I did a tasting at recently, and not exactly a craft beer market at all, at all. And 90% of the people, when they did decide to buy what I was tasting on the night, it had everything to do with the fact that it was a little bit stronger than their cans of Budweiser or Dutch Gold.
Yeah,
So look, guy, there's
James, you need to start importing culture
truth to it, but overall, I think people get it.
Yeah, I think that's the kind of association with alcohol that is slowly, I think, changing in Ireland. It's like it's very, very slowly changing. But the toasted hops is probably just the weed. It's the same kind of.
Yeah. I think it was a toasted journalist.
Probably. Uppers and downers and everything.
Yeah, right and bake.
I suppose like the high ABV stuff, like Steve is drinking. Are you still drinking that Newman Cannonball?
Huh?
Steve.
Maybe just a little bit. It's all this high ABV stuff is just hype, really, isn't it?
He says as he holds an 11.
Actually, no. That's a good point. There is from a perspective of a producer and a consumer, high ABV and high IBUs have just become like low-profile tires on shitty cars. I mean, it's just become ridiculous what some breweries are trying to get away with. I had somebody come up to me at a beer fest recently and ask me what we had, and at that point in time, we only had the two beers. We had Sheep Stealer and Bucket. And I told him out, and he said, no, he said, I don't drink anything less than 70 IBUs. And I said, all right, I wasn't going to argue it with him. I did argue it with him because it's just my nature, but I said to myself, this is a losing argument, but he was insistent that he would not drink anything lower than 70 IBUs. And that was his thing. And he was a sucker, quite frankly. He bought into this high IBU business that is inconsequential in the real deal. Doesn't friggin' matter.
Richard, you said you wouldn't tell anybody.
Yeah.
Say again?
You said you wouldn't tell anybody.
No. Sorry, the secret's out.
Oh, no.
It's all about high carbonation. That's where its secret's at.
I like the one with the bigger bubbles.
Yes.
Can I get bigger bubbles in mine?
Yes. I want it looks like you put a squirt of fairy liquid in the glass before you poured the beer.
Yeah.
I suppose from a serving point of view, have you ever gone into a place like and they don't know that you're a brewer, Richard, and asked for a pint of your product and seen how they pour it? Because I think the art of being a barman in Ireland decades ago was a proper trade and profession. You went to do your time, you went off and did everything. But now it's like lowest common denominator. There's guys that just genuinely don't give a toss what they're doing. Have you ever found that you've had an issue with how they're dispensing your product in any accounts you have? You obviously don't name names.
Well, funnily enough, only last week, yes. And it was, in fairness, was the first time it had occurred. But I went into a place that had been serving our sheep stealer on draft. And when I walked in, I noticed that we weren't there anymore. And we'd been on a rotation tap, in fairness, so I knew it was a limited engagement. But I said to the server, I said, "Oh, you don't have that Black Donkey beer, that sheep stealer beer." "Ah, no, well, you know, that's a rotation tap." And, well, it was kind of... And she was humming and hawing about what she was going to say about it. And I said, "All right, not to worry." I said, "What have you got in bottles?" And she gave me her bottle list. Or she didn't. She recited me half a dozen bottles off the top of her head. And I had a bottle of something. Then I went and spoke to our distributor, and I said, "Okay, so the rotation tap's on, but why don't we have any bottles in the fridge?" He said, "We do." And sure enough, there were bottles of both sheep stealer and bucket in the fridge, and that was never mentioned to me. So I was told what she wanted to sell me, not what she actually had. And that got escalated. It got kicked up the ladder, and somebody got kicked down the ladder. But yeah, there is a certain... I've had comments, you know, that the head is too big on the beer. Well, it's kind of sheep stealer in particular. There's supposed to be a big head on it. It's not a cask ale. It's not supposed to be borderline flat, and it's not a nitro beer, and it's not a lager. It's supposed to have a big durable head, and some bartenders don't care for that. They feel they can't quite get enough in the glass to satisfy the customer. But no, by and large, other than the fact that the beer is universally served too cold, I would say no. I haven't experienced significant issues with bartenders, because most of the bartenders that are serving our beer are craft beer bartenders for the most part. So I would have to say no. I haven't had issues, although I have heard of issues from other brewers, but it hasn't hit us yet.
Finger touch wood.
Yeah.
James and yourself, obviously, you'd be a nationwide distributor. You wouldn't necessarily be in every pub every other day. Have you experienced something like that?
My favourite was a particular pub that we had a couple of draft lines in, and they weren't going very well. We couldn't get any sort of traction. We couldn't get any sales going, and it was a case of kind of constantly going back and trying to come up with the right answer. You know, put up posters, put up table tints, come up with POS.
It hasn't hit us yet.
And so decided, look, really, I'm going to have to go in and sit down with the staff and do another proper training. So went in and made an appointment to sit down with all the bar staff and get a training done. Showed up a little bit early, and I was sitting up at the bar and chatting away with the bar manager, and I said to him, "So how are the craft beers going?" And he looks at me and says, "Craft beer? Who the fuck would drink that shit?"
Therein lies your problem.
I immediately realized he had no idea who I was or why I was sitting at the end of the bar. And immediately realized why this was not going so well. So, yeah, there's a bit of that, all right.
I can definitely add to that. Full disclosure, what I do in my slab job is for the new Brewers Project beers, the ones from Guinness. I know. Richard, shut up. You already know that.
Fetch me a crucifix, quick!
In fairness, you actually like it. But yeah,
I like James. I don't like what he does.
And I would go in. Shut up. I would go in originally just to kind of gauge what kind of a pub it would be, what kind of a bar it would be. to kind of understand who the clientele is. What are people drinking? Is it a Guinness house? Is it a Heineken house? Is it a craft beer bar? Who am I going to be talking to here? And one of the places went in and did the exact same thing that James did and sat down, talked to one of the bartenders, and I said, so what's the level of interest now in the Dublin Porter? And he looked at me and he goes, it's absolute shite. And I just said, all right, fair enough. And all opinions inside on this panel right now, all opinions aside. It's just it was not the place.
You sound like you need a Heimlich.
It was not the place. It was not the place that you'd want to have anything other than the normal range. So, what can you do?
Yeah.
Rob, Steve, any horror stories? Sarah, any horror stories have been in the pub and you've seen them serve craft beer in ridiculous things? Now, I've seen someone being given a craft beer with a champagne flute.
Champagne flute?
Champagne flute.
Fancy.
Yeah, classy. That's all I could think.
That's one step above a craft beer with a straw.
Woo, we should do that.
Well, one thing I've kind of observed in the past, which is quite a positive thing as well. I mean, my local brewdog bar is tiny. It's the smallest one. It's the worst performing one in the entire chain. I love it though. I mean, it's like as big as my basement, but it's great. And you kind of feel like you know the guys who work there, and it's a real kind of like friendly atmosphere. But I'll sit in there, and then there'll be those confused hen parties will come in and think, well, what on earth have I walked into? But it looks like a cool bar, so they go in. But the interesting thing that I often see is that the guys will deal with that group really effectively. They'll kind of try and educate them. They'll give them tasters of everything. But what often happens is there'll be a couple who go for, that punk, dead pony. Big chunk of them will go and get maybe a glass of wine or a bottle of cider. But then there'll always be someone, at least one or two of them in that group, who go for kind of like Paradox kind of smokehead or kind of like the barley wine, which is like £5 for a third or something. And I don't know if it's based on that it's a strong beer or that it's hopefully that they've tasted it and they've gone, yeah, you know what, I actually like that. And there's something quite kind of like reaffirming about that people have given themselves the opportunity to taste something that they normally wouldn't, and in the end they thought, oh yeah, I never thought I'd like that, but as it turns out, I really like a 15% Imperial Stout aged in a bourbon barrel. But sometimes you just got to give yourself that opportunity. So sometimes
I think Rob, a lot of that boils down to how good the staff are as well, though, doesn't it? Because I've been into plenty of craft beer bar where the staff have been poorly trained. They don't know what stock there is. They're unable to talk to the customer about what's available, and that's the one thing. Without banging the BrewDog drum too hard tonight, that's the one that BrewDog do very well. Absolutely. They train their staff. Their staff are passionate. They know what they're talking about. And I'd say there are only a handful of bars in the UK that operate like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does drive me nuts when I go into a bar, and especially a craft beer bar, and like the staff doesn't know what the hell they're talking about, and I'm actually sitting next to somebody and I have to recommend a beer for them. I'm okay doing that, but I'm just like, well, you should kind of know what you're doing so that you can recommend a beer, you know?
Yeah, I had it a few months back. I was in a Wells and Young's pub, so you might be able to guess where this story's going. And the bar manager asked me if I'd ever heard of craft beer, to which I just gave a sly smirk, and then suggested that I tried DNA. At which point I politely declined and asked for a pint of Foster's.
Oh, that's come on now.
Dave,
did you just turn and go? You never had a t-shirt. You know who I am.
No, I wasn't wearing one of the branded t-shirts that night, mate.
Do you get the advice?
I don't always walk around in branding.
But as far as kind of like ABV goes, I think there is a bit of that. I think you're having, once again, going back to Brewdog, because where Brewdog in Leeds is, it's in the kind of middle of the like towny nightmare. It's awful. I mean, if you want some cocaine, it's probably the best place to be. Not in Brewdog, but in the bars around it. But it is an absolute nightmare. It baffles me. They are moving, but it baffles me why they went for that spot. But it's been fun while it's lasted. But so you will get those kind of gangs, especially tonight. You'll get gangs of slightly towny lads going in there, going. 5 of them will go pint lager, and then a few of them will be like fascinated by, oh bloody hell, there's a beer, it's 15%. Admittedly, they might go for it, and then they buy that third for £6 and then walk out. I don't know if that's. I mean, I don't think Brewdog are after that person anyway, so they'll probably take the money gladly. But I don't think there's like especially around Yorkshire, it's the opposite. People haven't an interest in ABV as far as the top end. They're bothered about the low end. Everybody wants low ABV, pale, hoppy. That's all they're interested in. The traditional
beers. Session beers. That's what
they're interested in. Yeah. That's all they're interested in, really.
I want 15% imperial stouts loaded with cranberries and jasmine.
Exactly.
What's everybody having? Anybody change up their beers?
Yeah, we have on our 4th one now.
McCaller's I Beat You.
Yeah.
I have actually. Let me turn the logo away from the camera. That is the final prototype of our summer ale to be released next month. So you can't have it right now, but you can soon enough, and it's lovely. We're just waiting for some New Zealand hops so that we can put it into commercial production. And I just took a bottle of White Hag Black Boar and put it to come up to temperature a little bit, and that'll be the next round.
Richard,
I'm keeping it all local, keeping it all west. I was going to drink a Dungarvan seaweed saison this evening, but I think I might save that for tomorrow.
Yeah, we have a couple in the fridge as well. Is that the pale ale you had at the RDS for Paddy's Fest?
Yeah, to all intents and purposes, but we added another hop. We added a New Zealand hop. So that one you had at the RDS was basically it was all flavor and aroma was Mosaic, and we've added some Waiti to it, and it just the two of them. Yeah, the Waiti and the Mosaic go very nicely together, and so we can bring that in about 4.1, 4.2. It will be an Irish lawnmower beer, and I'm not saying anything else at this point in time.
Exciting.
You can send me a keg.
Especially with James on the line there. Next thing I know, it'll come out with a front harp on the label.
I'll take 1 key keg.
1 key keg, all right. 20, 30, or 50 litre?
I should go 50.
Yeah, well, if key keg made a 50 litre one, you could have it.
No. I don't have any dispense equipment, so I'll just have to hope you bottle it then.
Oh, well, do you know what? I have space in my keezer right here, so we can put one in and you can come on over, have some dinner, and have a couple of pints.
I will do that, so.
Amen.
What was I going to say? In terms of sessionable beers, like obviously we've talked about the high-end ABV stuff. Like, it seems to be a real challenge now. You're seeing a range of sessionable beers where they're trying to pack in as much flavour as possible in low ABV. Like, obviously, the immediate Irish example is Axe the Session, 3.5% pale ale. Don't know, is there any other low ABV Irish beers? Beer Maris by Galway Bay.
Got Graffiti from Trouble Brewing.
Yep.
Oh yes, that was epic as well. Yeah.
Do you know what? There's a big difference, I'd say, between Via Maris and Via Maris to me is like it's a secondary beer that's like the leftovers from what they're brewing of Foam and Fury. And to me, putting that in the same category as, say, Graffiti is almost like a disservice to Graffiti. Graffiti is an intentioned beer. Via Maris is a really clever way to make additional money from the same process. And it's a beautiful way of use of efficiency. And I mean, yes, I know there's a historic thing there about strong ales being done where they would actually produce ales and then blend them back later on. And that's a historical thing from English brewing. And so
No, it's actually it's a current thing in a lot of Belgian monastic brewing.
yeah, but it's a very old. Yeah.
Your big 12% beer would also yield a 6% and a 3% beer, which one for the monks, one for the visitors, and one for the fasting days.
Trouble again did that quite recently with their triple IPA, where they produced Fallen Idol, which then was a dark beer that they used from the second runnings of that triple IPA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
See, that's an interesting. That's an interesting point about kind of like small beers. I mean, the small beer that I'm most aware of is Anchor, which is the second runnings of Old Foghorn, and I really appreciate the whole situation with kind of monastic breweries. I think that's you kind of let that go. That's it's part of that culture. So that's acceptable, absolutely acceptable. But I know I think Anchor have dropped small beer in the recent years. But at the same time, I don't know how comfortable I am with kind of modern breweries creating big beers in companion to Steve's Unhuman Cannonball, which Magic Rock could have definitely made a small beer out of that. I'm drinking Buxton's 2 Ton, which is 11%.
Are you sure they didn't?
I would very much doubt it.
But you see here the bottom line now, and one sort of I've a couple of principles by which I brew, and one of them is that accountants are not allowed to see the recipes. But
that's a very good one.
Yeah, but you know, if you're brewing a big beer and you're running at certainly if you have a relatively unsophisticated small brewery, as we do, and you want to brew a high ABV beer, you are running at an efficiency that would make your accountant turn in his grave, even if it's not deceased. And so to potentially dump that, you know, you'd want to have a really good relationship with your farmer who just spent grains to feed his cattle, and make sure the cows that eat that batch of spent grain is the one that comes back to your fridge 6 months later, because that's going to be one rich fat cow, because you're literally pouring money down the drain by not capturing your second runnings. We haven't done it because our brew house doesn't allow us to brew particularly high ABVs to begin with, but were we in that position, yeah, it would be way heavy on me to throw away all that sugar, because that's what you would have to do.
I'm actually surprised, given the, you know, you look in Ireland, you say like they wasted your sugar and the rest of it. Like in an awful lot of cases, just before I dive into this, have a look at Ireland at the moment. Look at the health food market and the growth of things like protein bars and isotonic drinks and the rest of it. There are some amazing complex sugars that are actually left over from second runnings. I'm surprised that no brewery has actually grabbed onto that and sold it as an isotonic drink. When you look at Erdinger's non-alcoholic beer, and that's sold as an isotonic drink.
Really?
Yep.
Wow. So can I go to work and like cracking open the Erdingers?
Yeah, non-alcoholic Erdinger actually has. It's an isotonic drink on the label.
I'm energizing myself.
They sponsor the German triathlon team, don't they? Or something like that as well.
Erdinger non-alcohol.
That's crazy.
Random fact of the evening.
James, how's BR1 holding up after all this time?
I haven't cracked it yet.
All right. Get it into
Still
you.
on the dark stuff.
We've got a Brewdog Cahuto or something. Cahuto? How the fuck do you pronounce that?
Coatu.
Coatu.
Yeah.
One of my
How
favorite.
is it?
It's good, I like it, yeah. It aged well.
So Steve, you're the man with the fanciest beer in his glass. After the mass hysteria of Human Cannonball, how do you find it in the bottle comparison with the cake that you was enjoying last week?
Well, I mean, you can see it there, can't you? You can't actually get a light through it. It's still Huddersfield murky, as I think
I
is
have
the term
nothing to say about
we've coined for it now.
Oh, don't. Right. My advice would be don't say anything about the clarity of the beer.
Okay. It's tasting pretty much the same as it was in the keg. Actually, it's just a tropical fruit bomb. That's all it is. It's like drinking the most alcoholic tropical juice you're ever going to taste. Somebody said it on Twitter earlier tonight. It's like drinking alcoholic umbongo. It's brilliant.
There you go, Wayne. Sing the song.
Nice.
I'll give a bottle. It may not contain any liquid. Or human cannonball. To anyone who can remember the words to the Umbongo TV advert.
You do. You know
I
that
don't know
off
them
by
all.
heart.
I know, yeah.
You even know the little dance.
All I know is the chorus. Umbongo, bongo, the drink it at the Congo. And that's it. I'm done. Can anyone else bring it on any further?
No.
What the hell is
Way
up
down
with
deep
Congo?
in the middle of the Congo. That
Oh!
was the start.
There was something about a python as well in there.
And something about mandarins.
Yeah.
Misspent youth.
A question that we asked on our podcast before was breweries doing special beers, like seasonal beers. What are people's thoughts on those ones? Sarah?
I think it's a good idea. I mean, like, you know, it gives them a chance to experiment outside of their, at least in Ireland, it gives them a chance to experiment outside of their normal range, because a lot of the breweries here like to have like their regular range that's on all the time to bring in the revenue and whatnot. And a lot of the breweries here don't experiment, I think, that much, not all of them. And it gives them a chance to kind of just have the chance to experiment a bit differently and have a one-off beer that they can put out on the market and then not have to worry about keeping it there constantly. And, you know, I know a few breweries that do it. They're all there sniffing that. That's not...
I'm sorry.
You're distracting me.
I'm sorry, but I got nothing.
Whether or not it's the power of suggestion, but that really does smell like umbongo.
Yeah, it's all tropical fruit juice.
I'm missing
That's all it
something.
is. Isn't it?
I'm really missing something.
Surely you've got a bottle tucked away, Rob.
No, I didn't buy one this year. I went to the launch at North Bar. It sold out before I got to the front of the bar. I bought a third on the draft. Decided that I didn't want to buy any more of it. It's. I'm not gonna say. I've gone through my personal communications with Mr. Burhouse, and I'm not a fan. I'm really not a fan. I think this year it's not as sweet as last year, which is good. I don't give monkeys about the clarity. The clarity clearly looks like chicken stock, but that's not an issue to me. I love Omnipollo beers. Omnipollo beers look like shit, but that's not an issue at all. For me, I don't think it's the beer that it could be. I think Buxton 10 Ton is significantly better. I think there's a little bit of sourness in it. It's not fruity. It's boozy. If you pick out like a beer like Sintra from Knee Deep, it is available in the UK, but unreliable freshness. I brought one back from America, which was like maybe 6 weeks old, and that is incredible. For me, that beer doesn't hide its strength at all. It's boozy. It's hard going. It's very dank, and this is a personal preference. It's very dank. I'm not into dank hops. I like big fruit bowl hops. It's dank as fuck. It's not for me, and that's not a bad thing. It doesn't mean it's a bad beer, but it's just not. I don't like the hysteria, and this is another question I guess we can get onto later. But I don't want the hysteria that surrounds that beer seeping into British beer culture. Because my friend Lee, who lives in Illinois, is he'd been at Dark Lord Day, Free Floyd's today. And I've seen all his photographs, and it's raining, and it's chaos, and I don't want that in British beer culture.
Do you know what? You say that, Rob, and I think you're actually already past the watermark on that. The reason being is if you look at British beer culture right now and look at how craft breweries in the UK are operating and the styles of beers they're brewing, hysteria about American hops like Simcoe, Cascade, Centennial, and sort of the big northwestern American hops, like they're now hugely prevalent in the beer culture in the UK.
No. I mean like special releases. It's the hysteria around like special releases and like the craze of like Pliny the Younger. Like you've got to queue up for like 6 hours to get like a thimble full of beer.
Pliny the Younger doesn't exist.
Yeah, but with deference, all due deference to the Americans on the panel this evening, I lived there for 20 years, and there's nobody can do hype like Americans. They'll line up for an hour and a half for a bacon sandwich on a Sunday morning because it's made with some artisan brioche bread that was stirred with a unicorn tusk and moistened with mermaid. I mean, it's fantastic. Hey, wait a minute, I'm giving away my marketing plan.
Damn it!
That's my new mash battle is a unicorn tusk. But the hype is incredible, and if you have an audience who's, shall we say, susceptible to hype, it is an incredible marketing tool. And I suspect you will see it in the UK and Ireland. Probably, maybe even more so in Ireland than in the UK.
It's definitely already here. I wrote about it after the launch of 200 Fathoms this year, that the hype around it and the launch I went to the one at the Brewdog. I'm just as susceptible as the next beer geek, and after I was done, I went back and I wrote a bit of a message on Bjor about inclusivity and exclusivity and who are we wanting to bring in as a fairly sort of new beer culture here. Let's keep everybody involved, and it's to a certain respect, it's wonderful. It means that I couldn't believe the interest that night at the 200 Fathoms launch. There was the place was packed. It was incredible. Sarah, I know you were there, and it was and Wayne and Janice, I know you guys were there as well, and it was incredible. And things like Polar Vortex or some of the special beers that have come out recently from 8 Degrees. There's nothing but great things to be said. There's a lot of appreciation for it. There's definitely a market for it, but I would just worry that that we're getting into an inclusivity sort of, or excuse me, an exclusivity sort of society as opposed to an inclusivity, and that's something that I wholeheartedly don't want to happen this early. I want everybody to sort of enjoy it and be able to gather around and say this is a brilliant beer and this is really something that we can get behind before we get into the Pliny the Elder or Dark Lord Day or anything like that.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't want it manufactured as well. I don't want people to manufacture the hysteria. I mean, if it happens organically, great. If people kind of like understand that this is awesome and you'll sell your mother to get a bit of it, great. But if someone's, and I'm not saying Magic Rock did this, I think they kind of did a little bit early on, but they're really stepping away from that. But it just makes me so uncomfortable. If it's great, let it be great, and fight and kind of like claw to get it. But hopefully, like make enough so everybody can have a bit of it. Opposed to making like a small amount and like let the people who have been following it on Twitter for the last like 3 weeks on the countdown to know the secret location and the specific time that you can go and get your kind of like 2 hours pour. It's exciting for some people, but I don't think it's the way we should go at all. It's ugly.
And that's well taken and so on, and a lot of people won't subscribe, but nonetheless, because of the hype, we're sitting here talking about it right now.
We are.
Yeah.
And I'll be
everybody knows Pliny and Kate the Great and Heady Topper and all the rest of these other beers that people line up in car parks overnight for. I don't know how many people here have tried them. I don't think I've tried any of those.
Yeah.
Certainly never had Dark Lord in them, but
Yeah.
doesn't alter the fact that we're all still talking about them. And if all of a sudden I went into the local petrol station and I saw a bottle on the shelf that had Russian River on it, regardless of what it was in the bottle, I would almost certainly buy that bottle, because Russian River has created this aura and this mystique about it. And so from a marketing perspective, it does work. You can't deny it. It's a business thing.
It does, and Pliny the Elder actually does. They do Pliny the Younger every year as well, and it's just poured straight from the brewery. So, and you can only get it there. So, I mean, that's another thing that they do. But I think Galway Bay, they do their 200 fathoms just once a year. I think it's mostly because, obviously, for them, the cask, the ability to get the cask and whatnot, and try a different thing and bring it out once a year. They did do a lot more this year, obviously, of supply than they did last year. So there was a lot more available to people. There's still bottles available in the shops that I've seen. So it's not like it went out as fast as it did last time. It's not like it was as limited as it was last time. But, yeah, I mean, I think supply and demand, and they're just doing it in the way that they can just get it out and create a hype around it, and I kind of get the point to it, to, kind of, I don't know, kind of make something special about it, in a way, and, you want to market something special, and that's why a lot of the breweries, I mean, they do this in the whiskey as well, where you bring something out and try to make it a bit different, where they did Jameson Caskmates, and they try to make it a bit different, and now it's gotten so popular that they've decided they're probably going to make it a full-time thing, where like originally it was just going to be, this is it, we're done, and there's this many bottles, and now it's so popular for Jameson, they're probably going to make it a full-time thing. So, I mean, when doing a one-off, it kind of like, it does make it a bit special, but like when you end up making it a full-time thing, I guess it kind of takes that away. So I don't know. It goes back and forth. I don't know.
Can I just say, in terms of Dark Lord, I think I might be a bit confused. I mean, I've had this. I got it from my local Aldi's. I didn't have to queue up. I didn't really think it was all that, to be honest with you. Sorry.
Everyone down to that Aldi now in the morning, Steve. You know what you've got.
Yeah, be queuing up outside.
Oh, Jesus.
I think I remember that one. I think I remember that one you're talking about.
Sorry, have I got the wrong one, have I? The names of beers and the controversy it causes.
Sue him. I'd sue him, to be honest, if I were you. For Bateman's, sue him.
Yeah, I think just on the point there about Galway Bay, I think they've earned a certain amount of kudos because they brought a Foam and Fury into being in this country. Like, they just have an amazing brewer there, but they also have an amazing route to market in their 10 pubs. It sets them apart from every other brewery in the country that they have such a direct route to market that they can, pimp it through their staff. I think 200 Fathoms this year was a lot fairer than it was last year. Because, again, one aspect of the hype I really dislike is you get people then hoarding the good beers. They'll go in and buy maybe 5 or 6 bottles of the beer. Ian.
Let he who is without sin.
I only bought a case of it, okay?
But the thing is, like, in fairness to Galway Bay, they recognised from last year's, fallout or, post-launch that they were like, we're onto something here. We've got a really great beer, but they partnered with Teeling, and I think partnering with Teeling really helped because the ethos of Teeling's being an independent distillery opening in Dublin for the first time. Sarah, you can tell me when the last time a distillery opened in Dublin, and pairing up with a vibrant young craft beer company. It's a very good pairing, but they deliberately made sure that there was a lot available in bottles for people to be able to get them in bottles in selected off licenses, and obviously Steve got 1 or 2. I don't know, Rob, did you have a chance to get them in Drink Store before they stopped?
I didn't sadly. I kept looking and then the moment I was about to place an order, it sold out. See, well, I wanted thing as well. I wanted full Irish as well at the same time. They just sadly the moon and the stars didn't align at the right moment in history.
Rob, I'll get you one.
Yeah,
I'll get you one.
On here, I have a few. So.
Oh, thank you very much. But I guess my connection to kind of Irish beer. I mean, I bought the case. What Steve and Wayne and Ian all kind of like sorted out for the Beer O'Clock show, which was fantastic. And on the back of ordering that, I got I've started doing this monthly bottle share event. I know Steve does a similar kind of thing. But the kind of basic premise is there's 10 tickets, there's £10 a ticket, and you give me that money and I buy the beer. And last month I bought bottles of White Hag IPA, which has got a name that I can't remember, and that's the one, and bottles of Foam Fury. It went down an absolute storm. I mean, in this kind of, as Wayne said at the start of the show, West Yorkshire, a glut of 91 breweries or something ridiculous, and they were loving it. I think Foam and Fury was probably, I'd say, 60% of people's favourite beer of the night. And I mean, it's a great beer, and everybody needs that flagship beer to like. As Irish beer move forward, you need that beer that is the one kind of like leads the charge, and it's a fantastic beer. And why not that be the one? I mean, IPA, everybody loves IPA. As far as craft beer, when you think of craft beer, you think of IPA and Imperial Stout, and that's a fantastic IPA.
You bet.
Fair play, Rob, for pimping the Irish beers. I believe Galway Bay was also in Friends of Ham in Leeds recently on draft.
Oh, okay.
May have been or may.
Why didn't I know that?
Because
I think Steve's in Leeds more than I am.
A tweet did go out about Galway Bay being in Friends of Ham like 2 months ago.
Yeah. Is it Andreas?
He's a good friend of mine.
Yeah. He knows the guys in Galway Bay quite well, and I think he took over a pallet of beer to kind of get out through a few places, and I think Foam Fury was one of them. But like in terms of like anyone who hasn't been to Leeds recently, Friends of Ham it won the Guardian Beer Pub of the Year last year, didn't it, or the Observer or whatever?
It's good. It's good.
I really like Friends of Ham because I like cheese, I like cured meats and charcuterie, and that with craft beer and a very good range of craft beer is really good. But I suppose Galway Bay have done something differently in Dublin. The beer market. I've not had the pleasure of being myself, but two of our panellists have been there in the opening week, so James and Sarah were both there. It'd be interested to kind of get your initial thoughts on both the location itself, the bar itself, and obviously the range of beers, and how is it different from what they're already doing in a very successful way in their own pubs.
Well, I mean, go. You wanna go?
No, ladies first.
All right. Well, I mean, it's out in Christchurch, so you know, it's in a bit different location than their other ones, and their premise is to actually bring in special beers. So they're not going to bring in any Irish craft beers or beers from anywhere else unless it's a one-off. So if an Irish craft brewery has a beer that they want to bring in, it can't be anything on the regular roster. It has to be a special beer that is not already out somewhere else. So that's like how an Irish craft beer would be there. They're not even having their own like core range there either. So that's kind of cool. And then on top of that, they're bringing a lot of breweries that we haven't seen here already in Ireland. So they had Weird Beard. They had group by numbers we've already seen here. Some Tool maybe. Edge, yes, I had Edge the other night there. And just a lot of different crazy beers. I mean, they just keep posting new things, and to be honest, I'd like to just camp out there and live there. But I can't. I have to study. But it's a really nice location. and the bar itself it's very small. It's not a very big thing, but it has a downstairs area, an upstairs area, and then the main bar just has a big table next to it with actually like little ice buckets in the table. So I think the purpose of that would be if you bought a huge beer, like one of the taller beers, to share with people, you could, I don't know, stick it in there maybe. I don't know. That's what I could think. But yeah, and you actually order by number. So you order your beer by number.
That place Cask in Aberdeen. Going in there, just picking your number off the board.
Or tap to delete.
Yeah.
The other thing they're going to start doing is having a system, some sort of an electronic system, to let you know when. So the other thing to kind of piggyback on what Sarah was saying, when a keg is done, it's gone, and they put on something new. So what they're going to do is have some sort of an internet system where they'll let you know this is gone, this is the next one coming up. It's not rolling at the moment, but it'll be a good way to kind of know that for people like myself that have the sleeping bag in the tent outside, that this is the time to go in and grab something.
No, we're still in the basement.
The basement, perfect. Right next to the urinal, awesome. They serve, I think, the pies. I didn't go for it.
I didn't either, but that's all they have is pies. So
yeah. But their range is really, I would say, for the moment, probably the best in Ireland at the moment. Really, some unbelievable selections that you really wouldn't find anywhere else. Sarah and I were commenting, either depending on how your viewpoint is last night or this morning, on something coming in from the States from Victory called Dirt Wolf, which I couldn't believe that they got it. It's truly unbelievable. So one of those places where I'm gonna probably have a lot of moments where I'm like, I can't get in, and then other moments where I walk in and I go, sweet.
And how are they getting in these Victory beers? Like, who's bringing them in, or is it just grey market?
Well, I mean, they're working with they're working with Prohibition, which is partially Jason, and then a few other guys, and then why can't I think of Four Corners, sorry.
Four Corners.
And then Wally. And why can't Grand Cru. Sorry, Wally. Grand Cru. So all three of them are like kind of bringing them all in from different areas. So yeah.
Well, the Victory stuff comes into the UK by, I mean, somebody mentioned Andreas. It was Wayne who mentioned Andreas. So Victory comes in via a company called Vertical Drinks. In very close to me in Kirkstall, so their business is based on bringing in. They do Veltins. That's one of their big brands, but I think the more respectable side of it is up until a couple of years ago. If you ever got Sierra Nevada beer, Sierra Nevada Pale Ale in Europe, it was through a business in Kirkstall, just outside Leeds. It's a fantastic achievement, really. I mean, but they were the ones who were bringing in Victory. So I don't know if that's kind of weeding its way over to Ireland via Vertical, or it's just like a separate thing.
Part of the problem is that for a lot of the US beers that are coming into Ireland, like even trying to actually get an agreement in place to bring them in is like really, really difficult, because of some of the constraints that they put in place. For example, like Stoneford and Lagunitas will want refrigerated containers as the beers are coming in, to make sure that they're kept at their absolute maximum. And there's not an awful lot of like distributors in Ireland who can actually put those facilities in place. I think, like in Ireland, for example, I think Grand Cru are the only ones who are actually capable of doing that at the moment, and doing that for Lagunitas.
Is that why you guys are getting loads of Lagunitas and we get like really old bottles of Lagunitas IPA in Marks and Spencer's via Radness. You're not getting like Hub Stupid and stuff, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've noticed. I'd love to get Hub Stupid over here.
Any idea if the Stone Berlin operation is up and running yet?
Stone Berlin operation won't be till Q3 2016. And then I will be going over and collecting my many multiple magnums.
I'll be there with you.
Actually, I'm looking forward to is if they actually complete the rumor of like them guest brewing a couple of beers for people like Dogfish Head and everything else, because getting some of those beers in Europe and that fresh as well would be absolutely amazing.
I think if Stone have said it's going to happen, it's going to pretty much happen.
Well, they said a hotel was going to happen, and now the only hotel we're getting is the Brewdog Hotel.
The hotel, schmotel. Yeah, if it involves beer, Stone will do it. They're that kind of place. You've met those guys in. I mean, they don't mess around. I mean,
Yeah,
hotel's one thing, but beer's a lot more important.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Mr. Winans, have you cracked beyond number 1 yet?
No, nearly there.
God, you nursed in that Russian Imperial Stout. What's wrong with you?
Well, I had 2 of them.
Touche.
You're nursing 2 Russian
What
Imperial Stouts.
what I actually want to know from you all is when you've had a few beers and you have the munchies, what do you go for?
That's actually what I'm interested to see what Sarah's making right now. Is Sarah making cereal?
Sarah!
Chips and gravy.
I think she's speaking of dog.
Chips and gravy.
I have to say, right, before we even started this evening, and it's why we're late, is I had the ultimate homemade burger.
You do not want to know what I just got out of the freezer.
Ian was teaching me how to cook tonight, and we made Brewdog burgers. Oh my god, they were insane. They were absolutely awesome.
It was like St. Bismarck mustard, 5 a.m. St. Ketchup, 5 a.m. St. Onion strings, Tactical Nuclear Penguin glazed hamburgers, Punk IPA pickles.
Yeah.
I was pissed off.
I was just about to say you don't know what you're missing until you've had a Black Donkey burger. That sounds like something Findus might have made, so I'll say nothing instead.
And then I also got Tactical Nuclear Penguin cookies into the mix.
But then we're munching on what right now?
We're some like candied malt brains that I made earlier today.
Nice.
I'd hesitate to say a Black Donkey burger is not that appetizing.
No, well, maybe it's an unfortunate choice of name. There is no donkey in the burger. But if you ask,
it's not the meat that I'm worried about.
No. Listen, talk to Mark Nixon, the brewer down there at Trouble Brewing. He said it's the burger by which all others will be measured. It's actually my burger made with a little Heston Blumenthal trick in there. That just is you wouldn't. It's simple as you like, and you would not believe the difference it makes to a burger. You have to grind. You have to mince beef yourself, though.
On a slight kind of like moving. So go on, Janice.
Steve, what's your beery snack?
Steve. Halcyon.
Wakey, wakey! Steve sleeping?
Hi, you're through the voicemail, Steve. I'm drinking.
Oh, hello.
Hello!
Good evening.
It's that delay.
11979, come in. Yes. Your time is up.
Yeah. This is what a big bottle of 11% IPA does for you.
What's your beery snack, Steve?
Normally cheese. I normally hit the cheese because it just seems to go with any style of beer. If you've got a selection of cheese in the fridge, you can always find a cheese that will go with a beer.
Oh, you're so refined.
I know. I'm going to be hitting the wine in a moment. So
when he talks about cheese, he means like Dairy Lee,
Yeah.
processed cheese
What's
slices,
Calbies and
squeezy cheese,
Mini cheddars.
mini cheddars. Mini cheddars. Come on.
It's quality stuff. We've got some of those Tesco cheapest burger slices as well that are like orange
Come on.
cheese.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you had quality cheese. You had quality cheese out of a can.
American cheese. Yeah.
Cheese out of a can.
Oh,
Okay.
Aerosol
what
cheese.
can,
Oh.
craft can, cheese in a can.
Wait.
You know, saying that he likes to wash down his evening of craft beers with like a Bud Light.
What about you, James? What's your beery treat?
James, James. Cashews.
Which James?
The only one that's here. The
Well,
other
one, the only ones that left.
Later.
Oh, have we lost him?
No, he's
No,
there.
no, I think he's just popped at Lou.
Breaking news from North.
He's gone for a Waz.
Before you had your hand in your ear, dude, you're like, breaking news.
Well, I have to say, my favourite snack is cheese as well. I'm going to agree with Steve. My favourite snack is actually cheese.
Mine is
It just goes with anything. It's just so versatile.
But,
Yeah.
but
Any
cheese,
time of the
cheese
day.
I thought more like cheese on toast or pizza. I see.
Yeah.
I'd always got cheese on toast, mate.
Like whiskey, it goes with everything.
A big
Toasty.
lump of blue cheese right now, I'd be happy.
Oh, stop
I
the
gotta-
cheese,
I gotta
cat.
go
I'm
wake your
gonna have
rock
to go and
for
get some
the fridge.
cheese in a minute.
But
See, my ultimate beer snack is always biltong. Biltong and beer is just a wonderful, wonderful thing.
Oh, I'll tell you what.
Sorry, Rob.
You mentioned earlier, Rob, about the bottle shares. We've started doing those, and one of the guys that comes to the bottle shares, he's on Twitter at Clayfish. He makes his own biltong at home, and he always brings a few bags of it to the bottle share, and we all just wait for that moment when the brown bags come out. It's a wonderful time of the evening.
It is. It is. It's a perfect combination. And on top of that, I will always tip the hat to the beer blogging icon, that is the Omskert Baron, who exposed me to the combination of Aldi's Frikadellen sliced up with a bit of mango chutney. Oh, I tell
He's
you.
having a fancy hamburger.
No, it goes the opposite way. Actually, you can get Wagyu beef burgers apparently at Aldi at the moment as well, which I'm gonna sneak down tomorrow and get some of them. But yeah, Frikadellen and mango chutney. Pick a beer that doesn't go with. You're a better man than me.
Well, do you know what? Like, for me, it comes back to like real classic, and you can't get anything better than like bread pretzels to go with beers. Like, no matter what it is, like bread pretzel just absolutely lives with it.
With mustard.
Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah.
mustard all the way. Like
Yeah.
What kind of mustard?
That was my, well, sadly, American yellow mustard.
Yes, you're right, actually. No, I'm willing
You
to-
wouldn't put it with anything else, but it goes with the pretzel. That was my standard going home snack on the train out of Penn Station.
Nice.
Pretzel and a well, I won't say what craft beer because you might not consider it a craft beer, but a mustardy pretzel and a pint of Goose Island IPA,
Nice.
which you could buy at a beer cart in Penn Station in New York.
Nice.
That's what I call an honest train beer and train food.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does anybody cook with beer? Apart from you.
Beer in the cooking or beer in the cook?
Mm.
Beer, rice, and cheese. Mmm.
More in the latter, less in the former.
Yeah.
I'm making some Jack the Lad pizza dough about 2 nights ago.
Nice.
Ooh, lovely.
I think beer is just so much more versatile to cook with than wine, and like one of the things that kind of really I find really funny in a lot of Irish bars now we're starting to take on craft beer is that they'll get really knowledgeable about the craft beer, and then you go look at their food menu, and they'll infuse tons of foreign wines into the food as opposed to like using the beers in the food, which I find really, really lazy. Like for example, like where they'll be talking about having this absolutely amazing steak, and they'll have this like red wine jus that goes with it, and I'm like, hang on a second, you've got all these amazing craft beers in your bar, and you're telling me that your chef, like the summation of his culinary skill is to do a red wine jus, can't figure out flavors, using some amazing beers to do some absolutely killer sauce to go with it. Or that when they do their batters, they buy their batters in and they add water to them. And they have these amazing beers on top and can't do like this semi-tempura batter using a pale ale or using a red ale, which is really, really incredible. Or even to go as far as to do beer sorbets, the easiest thing in the world to do.
Wow.
I like cooking with beer, yeah. I'm a total another like culinary nerd.
I think it's something that's not obvious just yet. So, I mean, as it gets more like in the market with craft beers, maybe chefs will get more into it. But for now, like they're more knowledgeable on wine, so they're going to use wine. I mean,
yeah, I think you're right. I think it's kind of getting in there. Obviously, Steve maybe more than other people. I think it's kind of the current series of food and drink on the BBC is with Tom Claridge, and then there's a guy who they're wine expert, well they're booze expert I guess, a guy called Joe Wadsack. He really knows his beer. Obviously he's a massive kind of wine kind of expert, and I've heard fantastic things about him from kind of like friends who are really into their wine. But on the first series of Food and Drink with these guys, they featured first episode was Wild Beer Co, which is completely out of nowhere that they did that, and then they did an episode that they mentioned canned beers, and he was absolutely singing the praises of Beavertown's neck oil. And then there were another episode which was slightly disappointing, and they were a bit like kind of like Fuller's London Port, which is a wonderful beer, and then like Worthington's White Shield, but which is a bit kind of like shilling to that kind of like bigger market.
So Rob, did you just say London's or Fuller's London Porter is a wonderful beer?
It is.
Okay, sorry.
It's incredible. It is the archetype of the style.
I was about to say, were you on their payroll and you haven't told us?
No, Fuller's London Porter. If you can find a traditional London Porter that beats that,
I did. It's called Brixton Porter.
No.
And that actually made my best friend I've ever made.
No.
I would say brew by numbers 0303.
Actually, yeah, their one was really good.
That one I get under.
Actually, my favourite beer by Brew by Numbers was their Red Ale. I just think that.
Whoa. Let's step back a moment.
What? Which one?
Step back a moment. Hang on. So where did this all begin? Where did this perfection of a style begin?
Come
on.
I don't know.
Do I have to get the banhammer out? No politics.
Fuller's London Porter is a fantastic beer. It set the standard for whatever may have followed. That's all I'm going to say right now.
Well, everybody has a different palate, and that's what's so important about craft beer.
There's nothing remarkable about it. I mean,
how much stuff can be sold? Because we all like different things. It's important.
What's this? What's he doing? What's Steve Bentel up to?
Right, I think
no.
Oh
no.
I'm gone silly.
Oh, Jesus.
I just want to stop the conversation.
I thought that green glass was a bottle of Heineken.
Heineken, oh, jeez, don't do that.
I want to
craft
stop the conversation and say I'm having this.
What is it?
Hog's back.
Janice, put it closer to the camera.
It says Hog's back.
Yeah, it's their Montezuma chocolate lager.
All right. Well, that's an interesting beer.
It's beautiful.
Well, listen, folks, on that cheery note, I'm afraid I'm going to have to leave the Company of the Ring, or the Fellowship of the Ring.
I win! I called it!
You called it!
the fellowship of the ring pull. But then enjoy the rest of your evening, your weekend, and look forward to doing this again sometime.
Thanks for joining us, Richard.
Yeah.
Cheers. All right, anytime. See you, lads. Ladies and lads. Cheers. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, Richard. I think James is
no joking.
Wow. I was just going to say there, James Winans.
Is he back?
Are you there?
Did I leave?
Yeah.
Well, you're looking exceptionally stationary now.
I'm poking him right now.
Are you alive, James?
I'm alive.
Maybe his video is just stuck.
Yeah, his videos.
Yeah, video's off.
It's just got it.
If anyone sings
Developed
like,
a really high level of
Let
yoga.
it go, let it go.
not on the internet.
Oh my God! Stop! Don't do that, Jesus!
Those are the only words I know.
I don't need to see that movie. That horrifies me.
I suppose it's been a blast so far. Just a couple of quick topics, as we've been at it nearly now for 2 hours, and we'll kind of wrap it up now in the next 10 minutes. So, in terms of the James Winans in particular, are restaurants coming more on stream with craft beer in general, in your experience as a distributor, or are they still kind of pushing the wine agenda and highly skeptical of craft beer in general?
No, restaurants are definitely coming around. We've seen a huge growth in restaurants over the course of the last year, and I always really like going into restaurants because it's more of an opportunity to really sell the beer. A lot of times in pubs and off license, you kind of expect the punter to know about the beer before they go in, but in restaurants there's an opportunity to really get the information across and expose people to something different. But yeah, great market, and it's booming right now.
I think the one thing you hit nail in the head with there, James, is that there is a great boon for this. But for example, if I go into like a Fade Street Social, Dylan McGrath's restaurant, and you look at their wine menu. Their wine menu is incredible. It's there's such an attention to detail with it, and there's such care given into it. And then you look at their beer menu, and it's such great delicate foods. And there's Sierra Nevada Torpedo.
Yeah.
I think that there's this thing where if they just get craft beers, they randomly pick ones that look cool. And I think the missing gap is for anyone who's selling them their beers is to like sit down and talk to their chef about like what are their favorite flavors they like to work with, and actually get them to buy into the whole thing of the value of the craft beer. That for every single food there is multiple beers that will go with that food, and multiple styles of beers that can go with that food, and to help advise them so it becomes like a better value-added sale.
Yeah, I think restaurants are on the cusp of giving beer as much credit as they give wine, of respecting beer as much as they respect wine. But there's still a ways to go. We even put beer into Patrick Guibo's.
Nice.
Which
Nice.
was unheard of a couple of years ago.
Pretty much.
A couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, the times they are changing, as Bob Dylan said. I suppose it's probably a good time to wrap up. I want to thank everyone for taking part. The first Beery Chats was not without its technical difficulties at the beginning. That was my fault.
And we were eating.
And we were delayed because we were eating food, sorry. It'll be probably a little bit later next time. But thanks everyone for coming along. I suppose we're drinking this Pigback Montezuma's chocolate lager. It's the strangest beer I've ever drank.
I think it's fucking awesome.
Still think it'd be for me.
No, give me it all.
But just those of us that are bloggers and podcasters, if you want to kind of just give us your details before we wrap it out. So, Steve.
Beer O'Clock Show, www.beeroclockshow.co.uk. at Beer O'Clock Show on Twitter, at Beer O'Clock Show on Instagram.
Well, Steve's been Bismarcked all out.
Yeah. I'm completely Bismarcked. I'm going down with the ship. A good captain always goes down with his ship.
Blaze of glory. Blaze of glory. Sarah.
5 Minutes of Finny, 5minF on YouTube, 5minfinny.com, and at Irish Finny on Twitter.
Rob.
Hobzine.com on the blog that I update like 3 times a year. But please go to YouTube /Hobzine. You'll see far too much of my stupid northern face. And if you really want to hear what I kind of say on a daily basis, go to Twitter. It's at Hobzine. Keeping it all kind of like
Nice and compartmentalised, Rob. Good
exactly.
job.
I'm a practical fella.
Northerners, you're just tight. James Winans, where can we find more about Vanguard Beer Collective?
Twitter, Vanguard BC, and vanguardbeer.ie.
And lastly, James, your Twitter account, if anyone wants to follow you and hurl abuse or talk to you.
Is James02135, and yeah, throw me any abuse you want. That's fine.
That's what I like to hear. Thanks very much for joining us. I'm Wayne, Irish Beer Snob. It's the first of the Beery Chats. We're hoping to host these on a regular basis. I've been accompanied by
Mrs. Beerscope.
and
Another buddy.
another body, just the chef we hired for tonight. So thanks very much for watching. You can contact us at Irish Beer Snob, irishbeersnob@gmail.com. Untapped is at Irish Beer Snob. Instagram is at Irish Beer Snob. And yeah, get in touch, and hopefully we'll have a similarly broad panel next time. And thanks for watching and listening. Cheers.
Yeah.